Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we travel to a quiet village where the whispers of ancient tales and forgotten lands drift through the air like a soft breeze. In this peaceful place lives a young scribe named Alara, who embarks on a journey guided by a mysterious Quill. A journey that will uncover hidden secrets and ancient truths. So, settle in, close your eyes, and let the magic of the story carry you into a world where dreams and adventure await. Let your mind drift and relax as the tale unfolds and gently guides you into a deep, peaceful sleep. In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, there lived a young scribe named Alara. Her days were spent among the parchment and ink of her modest home, where she transcribed the tales and records of her fellow villagers. The people of Ardent were simple folk, their lives untroubled by the grand tales of kingdoms and battles that lay beyond the mountains. Yet, Alara's heart yearned for stories that spoke of distant lands and forgotten times. It was on an ordinary day, as Alara sorted through a pile of old dusty books, that something extraordinary happened. Among the faded tomes, she found one that was different from the rest. Its cover was worn, and the title had long since faded, but the book's binding was still intact, as if it had been preserved by some unseen hand. Curious, Alara carefully opened the book, expecting to find the usual tales of harvests and village lore. Instead, she was met with a strange sight. Nestled within the pages, as if waiting for her touch, was a quill. It was unlike any she had seen before. The feather was a deep, iridescent black, shimmering faintly even in the dim light of her cottage. The quill's shaft was smooth and polished, yet it bore no signs of wear. It looked as though it had never been used, yet something about it felt ancient, as if it had witnessed the passage of countless years. Alara reached out to pick up the quill, but the moment her fingers brushed against it, she froze. A faint whisper filled her mind, soft and indistinct, like the murmur of a distant wind. Startled, she pulled her hand back, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced around the room, half expecting to see someone standing behind her, but she was alone. The whispering had ceased as soon as she let go of the quill. Her curiosity, however, was stronger than her fear. After a moment's hesitation, Alara reached out again, this time grasping the quill firmly in her hand. The whispering returned, clearer now, but still too faint to understand. It wasn't the sound of voices she could recognize, but rather the echoes of words, as if the quill was trying to tell her something important. Alara's breath caught as she realized the quill was no ordinary writing instrument. It was as if it held the memories of the past within its feathered form, waiting to be unlocked. She felt a thrill of excitement mingled with a touch of apprehension. What secrets could this quill hold? What stories from long ago could it reveal? Determined to find out, Elara placed the quill on her writing desk next to a blank sheet of parchment. With trembling hands, she dipped the quill into her inkwell, then brought it to the paper. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, as if guided by an unseen force, the quill began to move. Elara watched in awe as the quill danced across the parchment, forming words with a fluid grace that was not her own. The ink flowed smoothly, but the quill did not simply write in straight lines. It curved and swirled, creating elaborate script that seemed to pulse with life. And as the words appeared on the page, Elara's eyes widened in astonishment. The quill had written a single sentence in a language she did not recognize, yet somehow understood. Seek the library beneath the ruins, where the past waits to be found. Elara stared at the message, her mind racing. The castle ruins at the edge of the kingdom had long been abandoned, shrouded in mystery and forgotten by most. But now, this quill seemed to be guiding her there, urging her to uncover something hidden within those ancient stones. The quill rested on the parchment, still and silent, as if it had fulfilled its purpose for the moment. Elara's heart thrummed in her chest as she reread the sentence. The library beneath the ruins. What could it mean? The villagers spoke of the castle in hushed tones, recounting tales of ghosts and curses, but none had ever mentioned a library. It was said that the castle had once belonged to a noble family, but they had vanished long ago, leaving behind only crumbling walls and dark legends. Elara knew that venturing to the castle would be no small task. The ruins were a day's journey from the village, deep within the forest that few dared to enter. Yet, the quill's message filled her with a sense of urgency, as if time itself were pressing her onward. The idea of a hidden library, filled with the knowledge of the past, was too tantalizing to ignore. That night, Elara could hardly sleep. She lay in bed, her mind swirling with questions. What had happened at the castle? What secrets lay hidden beneath its ruins? And why had the quill chosen her to uncover them? The answers seemed just out of reach, like a dream fading with the dawn. When morning came, Elara rose, with a resolve that surprised even herself. She packed a small satchel with food, water, and a few essentials, including the mysterious quill and the parchment bearing its message. She knew she would need guidance, so she sought out the village elder, a wise woman named Isolde, who had lived in Arden longer than anyone. Isolde's cottage was at the edge of the village, surrounded by a garden of herbs and flowers. The old woman was known for her knowledge of the land's history and her ability to see beyond the ordinary. Elara knocked on the door, and after a moment, it creaked open to reveal Isolde's wrinkled face, her eyes bright and curious. "Elara, child?" Isolde greeted her, motioning for her to enter. "What brings you here so early?" Elara wasted no time in explaining the events of the previous day. She showed Isolde the quill and the message it had written. The elder listened intently, her expression growing serious as Elara recounted her story. When Elara finished, Isolde sat in silence for a moment, her gaze fixed on the quill. "This is no ordinary quill," she finally said, her voice low. "It carries the weight of history, and it has chosen you for a reason. The castle ruins, they are a place of power, though that power has been dormant for many years. If the quill has directed you there, then you must follow its guidance." "But what will I find there?" Elara asked, her voice trembling slightly. "The message spoke of a library, but no one in the village knows of such a place." Isolde's eyes softened as she placed a comforting hand on Elara's. "The past holds many secrets, some forgotten, some deliberately hidden. The quill has shown you the way, but the path ahead will not be easy. You must be prepared for whatever you may find, and trust in the quill's wisdom." Elara nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. "I will go then. I'll uncover whatever lies beneath those ruins." Isolde smiled, a proud glint in her eyes. "You are braver than you know, Elara. Go with the blessing of the old ones, and may the quill guide you to the truth." With Isolde's words echoing in her mind, Elara set off on her journey, leaving the safety of her village behind. As she walked toward the forest, the quill tucked safely in her satchel, she couldn't help but wonder what awaited her at the castle ruins. The whisper of the past was calling, and Elara was determined to answer. And so, the young scribe stepped into the unknown, her heart filled with the hope of uncovering the secrets that had been buried for centuries. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of an adventure that would change her life and the fate of her kingdom forever. The forest loomed before Elara, its ancient trees standing like silent sentinels guarding the secrets within. The path to the castle ruins was narrow and overgrown, winding its way through dense underbrush and shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. But Elara was not afraid. The quill nestled securely in her satchel seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, as if urging her forward with every step. The journey was long, and as the day wore on, the sun's light filtered through the canopy above, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Elara's thoughts were filled with the possibilities that lay ahead. What could the hidden library contain? What knowledge had been lost to time, waiting to be discovered by her hand? The quill had chosen her for this task, and though she did not fully understand its purpose, she felt a deep sense of responsibility. By the time she reached the outskirts of the castle ruins, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. The ruins stood tall and imposing, their once grand walls now crumbling and overtaken by nature's relentless grip. Vines snaked through the cracks in the stone, and moss covered the remnants of what had once been a proud fortress. Yet, There was an undeniable aura of power that clung to the place, a feeling that time had not completely forgotten its significance. Elara approached cautiously, her eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. The villagers' tales of ghosts and curses echoed in her mind, but she pushed the thoughts aside. She had come too far to turn back now. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through the arched entrance, her footsteps echoing softly in the stillness. The castle's interior was even more desolate than its exterior. The great hall, once filled with the sounds of music and laughter, now lay in eerie silence. Broken furniture and tattered tapestries littered the floor, and the air was heavy with the scent of decay. Yet, amid the ruins, there was a sense of something more, something hidden, just beyond the reach of the ordinary. Elara's heart quickened as she recalled the Quill's message. Seek the library beneath the ruins, where the past waits to be found. But where could such a place be? She began to explore, her steps careful as she navigated the debris. The light was fading fast, and she knew she would need to find the library soon, or risk being lost in the darkness. As she wandered through the remains of the castle, she came upon a narrow staircase leading downward, its steps worn and crumbling with age. The air grew cooler as she descended, and a sense of anticipation filled her. Could this be the way to the hidden library? At the bottom of the stairs, Elara found herself in a long corridor, the walls lined with stone that seemed to hum with an ancient energy. Torches, long extinguished, hung from rusted brackets, their blackened stubs a testament to the years that had passed. The corridor led to a heavy wooden door, its surface etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The sight of the door filled Elara with a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door's iron handle. It was cold to the touch, but as she pulled, the door creaked open with surprising ease, revealing a large circular chamber beyond. The chamber was unlike anything Elara had ever seen. Shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient tomes and scrolls, their pages yellowed with age. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and dust, but there was also something else, a sense of life, of knowledge preserved through time. Elara stepped into the room, her eyes wide with wonder. This was the hidden library the Quill had spoken of, a place where the past had been carefully stored, waiting to be discovered. But as she moved closer to one of the shelves, she noticed something odd. The books seemed untouched, as if they had been left here centuries ago and never disturbed. She felt a sudden urge to take out the quill. Reaching into her satchel, she carefully withdrew it and held it in her hand. Almost immediately, the quill began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. Without hesitation, Elara placed it on a nearby desk, and once again it began to write on its own. The quill moved swiftly across the parchment, writing words that seemed to come from another time. Elara watched in awe as the message took shape, the letters forming in a script that was both beautiful and haunting. In this place lies the tale of a great betrayal, where a king's trust was broken and darkness fell upon the land. Seek the tome of secrets to learn the truth. But beware, for not all who seek the past can bear its weight. Elara's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. A great betrayal, a fallen king, and a tome of secrets. What could it all mean? The quill's message had brought her here, to this hidden library, and now it was guiding her deeper into the kingdom's forgotten history. But the warning was clear. The truth she sought might come at a great cost. Determined to uncover the secrets that had been hidden for so long, Elara set her resolve. She would find this tome of secrets, and with the quill's help, she would learn the truth of the kingdom's past. Little did she know, the path she had chosen would lead her into the heart of a story more complex and dangerous than she could ever have imagined. The hidden library was a place of both wonder and dread. Elara stood in the center of the circular chamber, the flickering light from her lantern casting long shadows across the walls lined with ancient tomes. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and ink, a smell that should have been comforting to a scribe, yet it held an undercurrent of something unsettling, as though the very walls whispered of forgotten sorrows. Elara's eyes were drawn to the rows of books and scrolls, each one seemingly untouched by time. The quill had guided her here, to a place where knowledge slept, waiting for someone to awaken it. But the message it had written about betrayal and darkness echoed in her mind, a warning she could not ignore. She moved toward the shelves, her fingers brushing against the spines of the books. Many were bound in cracked leather, their titles faded or written in languages she did not recognize. Yet one book stood out among the rest, a large, ornate volume, its cover embossed with golden symbols that shimmered in the lantern light. The tome was heavy, almost as if it bore the weight of the secrets within. And when Elara carefully pulled it from the shelf, the dust that settled upon it seemed ancient, as though it had been undisturbed for centuries. With trembling hands, she placed the tome on a nearby desk, its surface carved with intricate designs that hinted at the importance of what had once transpired here. Elara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she might uncover, and opened the book. The pages were filled with dense text and illustrations, but the language was foreign to her. Symbols and characters that danced before her eyes, elusive and mysterious. Just as doubt began to creep into her thoughts, the quill, resting beside the tome, began to stir. It rose from the desk as if lifted by an invisible hand and hovered over the open pages. Elara watched in awe as the quill dipped itself into the ink and began to write again, this time over the text in the tome. As it wrote, the symbols transformed, rearranging themselves into words that Elara could understand. Herein lies the tale of the kingdom's fall, the Quill inscribed, of a king betrayed by one he trusted most, and of an artifact so powerful it could shape the very fabric of fate. The truth was buried, hidden from the world, but now it calls to you, Elara, to uncover it and set the past right. Elara's heart pounded as she read the words. The Quill had not only revealed the meaning of the text, but had woven a story that felt all too real, as if the events had happened just yesterday. The mention of a powerful artifact, capable of shaping fate, sent a shiver down her spine. What could this object be? And why had it been hidden? The Quill continued to write, its strokes precise and deliberate, painting a picture of a kingdom in turmoil. The tome spoke of a time when the land had prospered under a wise and just king, whose reign was marked by peace and prosperity. But jealousy and ambition festered in the heart of his most trusted advisor, who sought to claim the throne for himself. To do so, the advisor had betrayed the king, using dark magic to seal away the artifact that had been the source of the kingdom's strength. With the artifact hidden and the king's trust broken, the kingdom fell into ruin. Darkness spread across the land, and the people forgot their history, the knowledge of their past slipping away like sand through fingers. The tome detailed how the artifact was buried deep within the castle, protected by powerful wards and hidden beneath layers of deception. Elara's hands trembled as she turned the pages, each one revealing more of the kingdom's tragic history. The betrayal had been so complete, so devastating, that even the memory of it had been erased from the minds of those who survived. Only the Quill, with its connection to the past, had the power to reveal the truth. The final page of the tome was different from the others. The Quill's writing stopped abruptly, leaving the last section unfinished. Elara leaned closer, her brow furrowed in confusion. Why had the Quill stopped? Was there something it could not reveal? As she pondered this, the room grew colder, and the flickering light of her lantern dimmed. A presence filled the chamber, a heavy weight that pressed down on her chest. Elara turned, her breath catching as she saw the faint outline of a figure materializing from the shadows. The figure was tall and cloaked in darkness, its features obscured by a hood that seemed to swallow the light. Yet Elara could feel its eyes upon her, cold and piercing, as if it could see into the depths of her soul. You seek what should remain forgotten, the figure intoned, its voice a low, resonant echo that filled the room. The past is dangerous, and those who uncover it may find more than they bargained for. Elara's mouth went dry, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. "I am a guardian of these secrets," the figure replied, stepping closer, the shadows swirling around it. The quill has brought you here, but it is not without purpose. It tests those who seek the truth, for the truth can be a burden too heavy to bear. The figure's warning sent a chill down Ilara's spine, but she was resolute. She had come this far, and she would not turn back now. I must know the truth, she said, her voice firm. The quill has chosen me, and I will see this through no matter the cost. The figure was silent for a long moment, as if weighing her words. Then it nodded slowly. So be it, it said, its voice softening slightly. But remember this, the path you walk is fraught with peril. Not all truths are meant to be uncovered, and some may bring darkness upon those who seek them. With that, the figure began to fade, the shadows receding as quickly as they had come. The room grew warmer, the light returning to the lantern, but the weight of the figure's warning lingered in the air. Ilara stood alone in the hidden library, the quill now resting motionless beside the open tome. The guardian's words echoed in her mind, but her resolve was unshaken. She would continue her quest, no matter the dangers that lay ahead. The past had whispered to her, and she was determined to uncover its secrets, even if it meant facing the darkness that had been buried for centuries. With renewed determination, Ilara closed the tome and carefully placed it back on the shelf. The quill had guided her here, but there was more to discover, more to learn. The kingdom's history was waiting to be uncovered, and she would not rest until she had brought the truth to light. As she prepared to leave the library, Ilara couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the quill would reveal. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life had changed forever, and the fate of the kingdom now rested in her hands. The next morning, Ilara woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the narrow windows of the castle ruins. She had spent the night in a small alcove within the hidden library, too exhausted to make the journey back to the village. The guardian's words from the previous night echoed in her mind, but they only strengthened her resolve. The quill had brought her here for a reason, and she would not turn back now. After a simple meal, she returned to the circular chamber, where the ancient tomes lay waiting. The quill was still resting on the desk, its feathered form catching the light as if it held some inner glow. Ilara reached for it, feeling a surge of anticipation. There was more to uncover, more of the kingdom's lost history to reveal. As soon as her fingers touched the quill, it sprang to life, hovering above the desk before settling on a fresh sheet of parchment. Ilara watched as it began to write, the ink flowing smoothly across the page. The quill's message was clear and direct, but it was also laced with a sense of urgency. The tome of secrets is but the beginning. To understand the full tale, you must seek out the ancient shrines, where the memories of the past are preserved. But be warned, Elara. The path ahead is treacherous, and not all who seek the truth will survive its trials. Elara's heart pounded as she read the words. The quill was leading her deeper into the mystery, guiding her to the ancient shrines where the kingdom's history was said to be preserved. But the warning was clear. The journey would be dangerous, and the truth she sought might come at a terrible cost. She carefully folded the parchment and tucked it into her satchel. There was no time to waste. She needed to find these shrines and uncover the full story of the kingdom's fall. But as she prepared to leave the library, a sudden chill filled the room, and the light dimmed once more. Elara turned, her breath catching, as the shadowy figure from the previous night materialized before her. The Guardian's presence was just as imposing as before, its form cloaked in darkness that seemed to absorb the very light around it. "You are determined," the Guardian said, its voice a low rumble that reverberated through the chamber. "But determination alone will not protect you from what lies ahead. The shrines are sacred places, guarded by forces older and more powerful than you can imagine." Elara swallowed hard, but she refused to back down. "I understand the risks," she said, her voice steady. "But I must know the truth. The Quill has chosen me to uncover it, and I cannot turn away now." The Guardian was silent for a moment, as if considering her words. Then it spoke again, its tone grave. "The Quill is a tool of fate, and it has chosen you for a reason. But fate is a fickle thing, and those who seek to change it often pay a heavy price." Elara felt a shiver run down her spine, but she nodded resolutely. "I am willing to face whatever comes. The kingdom deserves to know the truth, and I will do whatever it takes to bring it to light." The Guardian's form seemed to waver, the shadows around it shifting like smoke. "Very well," it said at last, "but remember this. The past is not always what it seems. The truths you uncover may not be the ones you expect, and the consequences of your actions may reach far beyond what you can foresee." With those final words, the Guardian began to fade, its form dissolving into the darkness. The chill in the room dissipated, and the light returned to its normal glow. Elara was left alone once more, but the weight of the Guardian's warning hung heavily in the air. She stood in silence for a long moment, her mind racing. The Guardian's words were ominous, but they had only strengthened her resolve. She had come this far, and she would not let fear deter her. The Quill had guided her to this point, and she trusted it to lead her through whatever challenges lay ahead. Gathering her courage, Elara left the hidden library and made her way back up the narrow staircase. The castle ruins were quiet, the morning light casting long shadows across the crumbling walls. As she stepped outside, the fresh air filled her lungs, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ancient shrines were her next destination, and she knew they would hold the key to unraveling the full story of the kingdom's past. The path ahead was uncertain, and the dangers were real, but Elara was determined to see her quest through to the end. She would uncover the secrets of the ancient shrines, no matter the cost. With the Quill as her guide, and the Guardian's warnings echoing in her mind, she set off on the next leg of her journey, unaware of the trials and revelations that awaited her in the depths of the Forgotten Kingdom. And so, Elara ventured into the unknown, driven by a desire to uncover the truth and restore the lost history of her land. Little did she know, the past she sought to reveal was more tangled and treacherous than she could ever have imagined. And the path she walked would lead her to confront the very darkness that had been buried for centuries. Elara's journey led her deeper into the heart of the kingdom, far beyond the familiar boundaries of Ardent. The land she traversed was wild and untamed, a place where nature reigned supreme and the air was thick with the scent of pine and earth. The path was often difficult, winding through dense forests and over rugged hills, but the Quill's guidance was unwavering. It continued to write messages on the parchment she carried, leading her to places where the past still lingered, hidden from the eyes of the world. The first of these places was an ancient oak grove, its trees towering like giants with gnarled roots that twisted and turned, forming a labyrinth on the forest floor. The Quill had inscribed a simple message. The first shrine lies within the heart of the forest, where the oldest of trees guard the memories of those who have come before. Elara knew she had arrived when she felt a deep, almost reverent silence settle around her, the kind that only ancient places possess. As she walked through the grove, she noticed carvings on the bark of the trees, symbols and runes, their meaning lost to time, but imbued with an undeniable sense of power. At the center of the grove stood the oldest tree of them all, its massive trunk scarred with countless marks that spoke of a history long forgotten. The air here was different, charged with a subtle energy that made the hairs on the back of Elara's neck stand on end. She approached the ancient tree, her heart beating in time with the pulse of the forest. The Quill, as if sensing her proximity to something important, began to glow faintly. Elara reached into her satchel and took it out, holding it gently in her hand. The Quill seemed almost alive, its feathered form trembling with anticipation. Slowly she pressed it against the tree's bark. To her amazement, the Quill began to write, not on the parchment, but on the very surface of the tree. The bark shifted and moved under its touch, forming words that glowed with a soft golden light. Elara read them aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. Here lies the memory of a time before the fall, when the kingdom was whole and the hearts of men were pure. But in the shadow of greatness, envy took root, and a betrayal most foul was conceived. The shrines remember, what the world has forgotten, and through them the truth shall be revealed. As the words faded, the tree shuddered, and the ground beneath Elara's feet began to tremble. She stepped back, her eyes wide with awe, as the earth split open, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the roots of the great oak. The entrance was dark and foreboding, but Elara knew she had no choice but to descend. With the quill in hand, she carefully climbed down into the chamber, her feet finding purchase on rough stone steps that spiraled into the earth. The air grew cooler the deeper she went, and the scent of damp soil and ancient wood filled her nostrils. When she finally reached the bottom, she found herself in a small circular room, its walls lined with carvings similar to those she had seen above. In the center of the room stood an altar, its surface covered in our dust and cobwebs. On the altar lay a small, ornate box, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to shift and change as Elara approached. The quill, as if sensing the significance of the object, began to glow brighter, illuminating the chamber with a soft golden light. Elara hesitated for only a moment before reaching out to open the box. The lid creaked as it lifted, revealing a single object inside. A fragment of a mirror, its surface cracked and tarnished with age. But as Elara touched it, the mirror began to mend itself, the cracks sealing and the tarnish fading until the glass was as clear as crystal. She held the mirror up to her face, but instead of her own reflection, she saw scenes from the past, the kingdom as it once was, vibrant and full of life. She saw the king, noble and kind, ruling with wisdom and justice. But then the images shifted, darkening as the shadow of betrayal crept in. She saw the advisor, his eyes filled with envy and ambition, plotting in secret. And finally, the moment when he betrayed the king, sealing the kingdom's fate. The mirror showed Elara the fall of the kingdom, the rise of darkness, and the sorrow that followed. It was a vision of a time long past, yet its impact was as powerful as if it had happened just yesterday. Elara's heart ached as she watched the scenes unfold, the weight of the kingdom's lost history settling upon her shoulders. When the vision faded, Elara was left standing in the silent chamber, the mirror still glowing faintly in her hand. The quill, now resting beside her, seemed almost subdued, as if exhausted by the effort of revealing so much. Elara carefully placed the mirror back in the box and closed the lid, knowing that it was only the first piece of the puzzle. She ascended the stairs, leaving the chamber and the grove behind. But the images she had seen lingered in her mind. The truth of the kingdom's past was slowly coming to light, and with it, the realization that the journey ahead would be even more challenging than she had anticipated. The quill's warnings had been clear. The truth was not easy to bear, and the path to uncovering it would be fraught with danger. But Elara was determined. The shrines held the key to understanding the full story, and she would visit each one, no matter the trials that awaited her. The Quill had chosen her for this task, and she would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. And so, with the first shrine behind her, and the weight of history pressing upon her, Elara continued her journey, the Quill guiding her steps as she ventured further into the forgotten past. Elara's journey took her far from the ancient oak grove, through lands where the past whispered on every breeze, and shadows of forgotten events lingered in the corners of her mind. The Quill's guidance was unwavering, leading her toward the next shrine, where she hoped to uncover more of the kingdom's lost history. Yet with each step, the weight of what she had already learned pressed heavily upon her, and the warning of the guardian echoed in her thoughts. The past is not always what it seems. The Quill had been silent since the revelation of the mirror's vision, as if it too needed time to recover from the truth it had shown. Elara could not shake the image of the king's betrayal, the sorrow in his eyes as he realized he had been deceived by one he had trusted. The pain of that moment had transcended time, leaving an indelible mark on the kingdom and its people. Elara knew that the story was far from over, and that the next shrine would reveal even more of the dark events that had led to the kingdom's fall. After days of travel, Elara reached the edge of a vast plain where the wind swept across the land in mournful howls. In the distance, she saw the remains of an ancient fortress, its walls crumbling but still standing as a testament to the strength it had once possessed. The Quill, sensing their approach, stirred in her satchel as if eager to fulfill its purpose once more. The fortress was desolate, its gates hanging askew on rusted hinges, and the once proud towers now little more than hollow shells. Elara felt a chill as she stepped through the entrance, the weight of history pressing down on her. The Quill began to glow faintly, guiding her through the maze of corridors until she reached the heart of the fortress. A grand hall, now empty and echoing with the ghosts of the past. In the center of the hall stood a large circular stone, its surface smooth and polished, despite the ravages of time. Elara approached it cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The Quill seemed to hum with energy as she took it from her satchel and held it over the stone. As if responding to some unseen command, the stone began to shift, revealing a hidden compartment beneath its surface. Inside the compartment was a scroll, ancient and fragile, its edges worn with age. Elara carefully unrolled it, her breath catching as she recognized the language written upon it, the same mysterious script that the Quill had translated in the hidden library. Without hesitation, she placed the Quill upon the scroll, and it began to write, its strokes swift and precise. "Here lies the account of the great betrayal," the Quill inscribed. when envy and ambition drove a trusted advisor to forsake his king and seize power for himself. The kingdom was at its zenith, its people prosperous and content. Yet in the shadows, a plot was born that would unravel the very fabric of the realm. Elara's eyes widened as the quill continued to reveal the story. The advisor, once a loyal servant to the king, had grown jealous of the power and admiration the king commanded. He coveted the throne, believing that he alone could rule with the wisdom and strength to secure the kingdom's future. But his ambitions were twisted by dark forces, and he sought out forbidden magic to aid in his quest. The quill described how the advisor had used this dark magic to manipulate the king, sowing seeds of doubt and mistrust. He whispered lies into the king's ear, turning him against those who had once been his closest allies. The advisor's influence grew, and soon he held the kingdom in his grasp, while the king, unaware of the betrayal, began to lose the support of his people. The king's downfall was swift, the quill wrote, and when the time was right, the advisor struck. He betrayed the king, using the power of the ancient artifact to seal away the kingdom's greatest strength and plunge the land into darkness. The people, bereft of their leader and their hope, forgot the truth of their history as the advisor rewrote it to suit his own desires. As the quill finished its account, Elara felt a deep sorrow settle within her. The betrayal had not only brought about the king's downfall, but had also erased the true history of the kingdom, leaving its people in a state of ignorance and despair. The artifact, once a symbol of the kingdom's power, had been twisted into a tool of destruction, its true nature hidden from all but the most cunning. Elara knew now that the quill's warnings had been justified. The truth was indeed a heavy burden, and the knowledge she had gained came with a sense of responsibility. She understood that uncovering the past was only the first step. She would also have to find a way to restore what had been lost and prevent such a tragedy from happening again. As she carefully rolled up the scroll and placed it back in the compartment, the quill wrote one final message on the stone surface. The past cannot be changed, but its lessons must be learned. Seek the final shrine, where the fate of the kingdom shall be decided. With those words, the quill's light dimmed, and the stone closed over the scroll, sealing it away once more. Elara stood in the silence of the grand hall, the weight of her mission pressing down upon her. The final shrine awaited her, and with it, the ultimate truth that would determine the fate of the kingdom. She could only hope that she would be strong enough to face what lay ahead. And so, with a heavy heart and the quill's guidance lighting her path, Elara left the ancient fortress behind, knowing that the greatest challenge of her journey was yet to come. The truth had been revealed, but the consequences of that truth were still to be faced, and the future of the kingdom hung in the balance. Elara's journey led her across wind-swept plains and through shadowed valleys, where the very air seemed to hum with the echoes of forgotten times. The quill, though silent since the fortress, rested in her satchel, its weight a constant reminder of the responsibility she bore. The revelations of the betrayal and the kingdom's fall weighed heavily on her mind. Yet she knew that the final piece of the puzzle awaited her at the last shrine. It was there, the quill had told her, that the fate of the kingdom would be decided. The path was long, and as she travelled, Alara felt the land itself changing. The air grew colder, the skies darker, as if nature was mirroring the sorrow and turmoil that had plagued the kingdom for centuries. It was as though the earth was still mourning the loss of the king and the betrayal that had brought ruin upon the land. Finally, after many days, Alara reached the base of a towering mountain. Its peak was shrouded in clouds, and the wind howled around her, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The quill, as if sensing the importance of this place, began to glow faintly, guiding her toward a narrow path that wound its way up the mountainside. The climb was treacherous, the path steep and rocky, but Alara pressed on, driven by the knowledge that the answers she sought were within reach. The quill's light grew stronger the higher she climbed, illuminating the way forward, even as the clouds thickened and the wind whipped around her. It was as if the mountain itself was testing her resolve, challenging her to prove her worth before revealing its secrets. At last, Alara reached a plateau near the summit, where a small, ancient temple stood. The temple was simple, its stone walls weathered by time, but there was an undeniable sense of power that emanated from it. This was the final shrine, the place where the truth of the artifact's curse would be revealed. Alara entered the temple, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The interior was dimly lit by the quill's glow, revealing walls adorned with carvings that depicted scenes from the kingdom's history. At the far end of the temple, a pedestal stood, and upon it rested a stone chest, its surface etched with runes that pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light. The quill guided Alara to the pedestal, its glow intensifying as she approached. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and touched the chest. The stone was cold beneath her fingers, but as she pressed her hand against it, the lid began to slide open, revealing what lay inside. There, nestled in a bed of velvet, was the artifact, the mystical amulet that had once been the source of the kingdom's power. It was a beautiful object, a small, intricately crafted pendant that shimmered with a soft, golden light. But even as Alara gazed upon it, she could feel the dark energy that surrounded it, a malevolent force that had twisted its purpose and brought about the kingdom's downfall. The quill began to write once more, this time inscribing its message on the air itself, the words glowing with an eerie light. This is the amulet of fate, an artifact of immense power capable of shaping the destiny of kingdoms. It was created to protect the realm, but in the hands of the advisor, it became a tool of darkness. The curse upon the amulet is a reflection of the envy and ambition that corrupted its power. To break the curse and restore the kingdom, the amulet must be cleansed in the sacred waters that lie beneath this mountain. Only then can the truth be revealed, and the kingdom saved from eternal darkness. Elara's heart raced as she read the Quill's words. The amulet was indeed the key to the kingdom's fate, but it had been tainted by the advisor's greed and betrayal. The curse that had been placed upon it had not only led to the king's downfall, but had also ensured that the truth would remain hidden, buried beneath layers of deception and darkness. The quill wrote on, its strokes swift and sure. Beware, Elara, for the curse is strong, and it will seek to protect itself. The path to the sacred waters is fraught with danger, and the amulet will resist being cleansed. You must have the courage to face these trials, for the future of the kingdom depends upon your success. Elara knew that the Quill's warning was not to be taken lightly. The journey to cleanse the amulet would be perilous, and the curse would not easily relinquish its hold. But she also knew that she had come too far to turn back now. The truth of the kingdom's history was within her grasp, and she would not rest until she had restored what had been lost. She carefully lifted the amulet from the chest, feeling its weight in her hand. The Quill's light dimmed slightly, as if acknowledging the significance of this moment. Elara placed the amulet around her neck, its cold surface pressing against her skin, and felt a surge of power course through her. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, a reminder of the immense responsibility she now carried. With the amulet secured and the Quill's guidance still lighting her path, Elara left the temple and began her descent into the depths of the mountain. The sacred waters awaited her, and with them, the final trial that would determine the fate of the kingdom. As she walked, the wind whispered around her, carrying with it the voices of the past, voices that spoke of hope and despair, of betrayal and redemption. Elara knew that the journey ahead would be her greatest challenge yet, but she was determined to see it through. The curse of the artifact would be broken, and the kingdom would be saved. And so, with the amulet's power and the Quill's wisdom guiding her, Elara ventured into the heart of the mountain, prepared to face whatever trials awaited her. The fate of the kingdom hung in the balance, and she was ready to do whatever it took to restore the light that had been lost to darkness so long ago. Elara descended into the depths of the mountain, the sacred amulet heavy around her neck, and the quill glowing faintly in her hand. The path was narrow and steep, carved into the rock itself, and the air grew colder with each step she took. The only sound was the echo of her footsteps, reverberating off the stone walls as she ventured deeper into the heart of the earth. The quill had written of the sacred waters, the place where the amulet's curse could be broken. But it had also warned of the dangers that awaited her. Elara could feel the curse's presence, a dark, oppressive force that seemed to seep into the very rock around her. The amulet pulsed with a sinister energy, as if it were aware of her intentions and was resisting with all its might. At last, Elara reached a cavern, vast and hollow, where the air was thick with moisture and the sound of water echoed softly in the distance. The cavern was lit by a faint, ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, casting everything in a pale, ghostly light. In the center of the cavern, a pool of water lay still and silent, its surface as smooth as glass. Elara knew at once that this was the sacred pool, the place where the curse could be cleansed. But as she approached, the air around her seemed to tremble, and the dark energy of the amulet intensified. The curse was fighting back, desperate to protect itself from being undone. Suddenly, the quill sprang to life, writing frantically in the air before her. "Beware, Elara. The curse will manifest in its true form. You must confront it with courage and resolve, for only by defeating it can you cleanse the amulet and save the kingdom." No sooner had the quill finished its warning than the water in the pool began to ripple and churn. The smooth surface broke apart as something dark and monstrous rose from the depths. A creature of shadow and malice emerged, its form shifting and writhing as if it were made of the very darkness that had plagued the kingdom for so long. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, filled with hatred and the hunger for power. Elara stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. The creature was a manifestation of the curse itself, a being born of the advisor's envy and betrayal. It loomed before her, towering and terrible, and Elara knew that this was the final trial she had been warned about. The quill hovered at her side, its glow a comforting presence in the face of the darkness. Elara took a deep breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. She could feel the power of the amulet, but she also knew that its curse was now fully awakened. The creature lunged at her, its shadowy form shifting and changing as it attacked. Elara dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The quill darted forward, drawing intricate symbols in the air that glowed with a bright, golden light. The symbols formed a protective barrier around Elara. But the creature was relentless, pounding against the barrier with all its might. Elara realized that she could not simply defend herself. She had to defeat the curse once and for all. Summoning all her courage, she reached for the amulet around her neck. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt a surge of power, both dark and light, coursing through her. The amulet resisted her touch, its curse trying to take hold of her mind, but Elara focused on the quill's light, letting it guide her. The creature snarled, its eyes blazing with fury as it sensed her intent. It lunged again, but this time, Elara stood her ground. She held the amulet aloft, and the quill moved swiftly, inscribing a circle of light around her feet. The circle flared with power, and Elara felt the curse's grip begin to weaken. But the creature was not yet defeated. It roared in defiance, its form shifting and twisting as it tried to break free of the quill's magic. Elara knew that she had to act quickly before the curse regained its strength. She closed her eyes, focusing all her will on the amulet and the quill, drawing on their combined power. With a cry of determination, Elara plunged the amulet into the sacred pool. The water hissed and bubbled as the amulet's dark energy met the pure, cleansing force of the sacred waters. The creature screamed in rage, its form beginning to dissolve as the curse was drawn into the pool, purified and stripped of its malevolent power. The quill blazed with light, its golden glow filling the cavern as the curse was finally broken. The creature's screams faded into nothingness, and the water stilled, returning to its smooth, glassy state. The amulet, now cleansed of its curse, shone with a soft golden light, its power restored to its original benevolent purpose. Elara stood by the pool, her heart racing, but a deep sense of peace settled over her. The final trial was over, and the curse that had plagued the kingdom for centuries was no more. The quill floated beside her, its light gentle and warm, a sign of the victory they had achieved together. With the amulet in hand, Elara knew that the kingdom could now be restored, its people freed from the shadow that had hung over them for so long. She had faced the darkness, confronted the curse, and emerged victorious. The quill had chosen her for this task, and she had fulfilled its purpose. As she made her way out of the cavern and back into the light of day, Elara felt a renewed sense of hope. The kingdom's past had been revealed, its curse broken, and its future was now in her hands. The final step was to return to the castle ruins, where the quill had first begun its journey with her, and to restore the amulet to its rightful place. And so, with the amulet glowing softly at her neck and the quill guiding her way, Elara began the journey home, knowing that the light of the kingdom would shine once more, free from the shadows of the past.